Hello everyone and welcome to Blue Tengu's live game development show where we show everything that goes into making a game from concept to completion. We're broadcasting from Tsukuba, Japan, obviously live since I'm flubbing my lines here. If you've ever wanted to make a game, we hope this will help lower the barrier to entry, maybe give you the nudge you needed to try it yourself. Even if you don't want to make a game, we hope you'll find some value in what we're doing here. All of the information about where you can find us is in the Twitch info down below or in our YouTube profile for those of you catching us later. But just in case, we're at www.bluetengu.com, btengu on Twitter, facebook.com Blue Tengu Studio, youtube.com Blue Tengu Studio for those of you watching the live stream with me now, and Twitch TV Blue Tengu on Saturdays for those of you watching us later on YouTube. Fridays depending on where you live. If you missed any episodes, you can always catch them over at YouTube, but you shouldn't have any trouble following along, even if you haven't seen them. For those of you who haven't seen the show on Twitch or YouTube before, my name's Eric. I'm a game designer living over here in Japan who's trying to show you everything that goes into making a game from concept to completion for about 2 hours a week, including all of the ums and ahs and awkward debugging moments. The reason I'm showing it all as opposed to making the game first and scripting out some tutorials and recording those is because I do want to help lower that barrier, and I think if you watch me kind of stumble around a few things, it gives you a little more confidence to do it yourself. Thank you to everyone who dropped by last week, and to all of those of you who watched the video on YouTube. For those of you who are with me on Twitch, feel free to drop suggestions or ask me questions at any time. May not be able to answer them right away because I am working, and usually if I'm scripting I'll have to concentrate a little more than usual, but I will try to get to them, and if I can't, please send me a private message here, leave a comment on our site or YouTube video, or send an email to eric@bluetengu.com. That's Eric with a C. I never mentioned that, but yeah, it's a C. And I'll do my best to address it next time. If any of you are out there making something and you don't mind showing it off, feel free to drop a link in the Twitch feed. I don't stop links or anything, so feel free to drop something there. And at this time, every week for 2 hours, I come on to Twitch TV to work on the game Project Spaghetti, which is a top-down 2D cowboy shooter where the bullets fired bounce around the screen with a pinball mechanic. Last week I added the beginnings of the opening tutorial sequence, and in overtime I polished it up and finished it off. I also asked you which task you'd like to see me take on next, and Cirrus voted for the game over sequence, so that's what I'll take on this episode. Also, just as a heads up, I did mention this last week, but I won't be here next weekend because I'll be in the States, soaking in new ideas at the Game Developers Conference. So to make up for my absence, I'm going to do a special long episode today on Twitch and break those into 2 episodes for those of you on YouTube. To save those of you watching me live from having to go through another introduction like this, I'll record that later and add it to the YouTube video. So, without further ado, let's jump into our task list and see what needs to be done. By the way, since it will be longer, obviously I understand if you guys want to jump out partway through or whatever, that's fine, no worries. So, let's jump over there. Dump to, I guess let's start with the desktop on the task list. And Quetzalcoatl jumps by. Wow, it's been a while. Yeah, Quetzalcoatl was someone who was in watching the feed back in like the fall and stuff, like when I was making like the scorpions and stuff like that. Since I think you were the one who lived in the desert and gave me some ideas on that as well. So welcome back. Thank you for dropping by. Game will have changed since the last time you've seen it. Some things will be the same. But I guess I should go through the overtime first. What I did do in between last episode and this week is mostly finishing off that tutorial stuff. It wasn't too bad, but it was kind of time consuming because working with paths and getting the timing right and thinking of all the ways like a player can kind of break the tutorial is a lot of work. Even working on just normal game projects, usually the opening stages where you have tutorials are a lot more work than the later stages where you just kind of let the player do their thing. So that took a little while. Do need to bring this window up here so you guys can see it a little better. There we go. And this task list is over at Trello.com. If you search for Trello and Project Spaghetti, you can find it. It's public, so you can take a look. I think you can even, I don't think you can comment on it, but I think you can vote on stuff. So far, I don't think I've seen a comment, so it might just be voting. But if you're interested in some tasks over others, feel free to vote. So the tutorial was mostly just, making sure that the player couldn't break it, basically, and that it made sense. The other stuff, let's see. Did add something where those items that get dropped fade and disappear over time, just to give the player a little more motivation to move around the screen and not stack up like a whole bunch of like bullet icons and stuff. Also made that bullet UI, like that chamber that's in the upper corner of the screen, made that semi-transparent when the player's out of bullets, just to kind of give that little extra hint that no, you can't shoot right now because you don't have bullets. Also matched the chamber to the bullet charge level, because right now it was just the effect, so like it would go to like cyan and yellow and orange and red as you charged up, but now the chamber itself does that too, so it's a little extra reinforcement there. Also changed the icon went over. Well, let me get out of the way of my task list here because I don't know if you guys can see it too well. Let's get it in the middle. I think my face was in the way there. But the dodge icon over the player, because before it was just the standard like crosshair, so it was a little difficult to see when you were able to dodge and not dodge. So I put that over the player. Also changed it to green when you can dodge and grayed it out when you couldn't dodge because of the cooldown. Also worked with some shaders just as an experiment and made the screen kind of go sepia old-timey when the player's injured. Not too happy with it as it is now, so I did put a task in the list to kind of adjust that. The only problem with the sepia thing is obviously colors do mean a lot, so I don't know. Just that contrast and stuff, taking away the contrast makes the game a little less clear, and that's the last thing you want to have happen when you're injured, so I'll have to think about that one. But it is kind of an interesting experiment because by taking away the contrast, you can kind of see how visible the game is. For example, if you can't see color. Also, when you're injured, put in a system to quicken the music, pitch it up a little bit. There's no music in the game right now because I don't want to annoy the heck out of you guys, but it does work. And let's see, those crystals on the alien UFO level, when the lasers reflect off of them, they do a little bit of a color thing as well. And the last thing is just some system stuff, resolutions and window resizing. Did it a little more properly so that it'll work on mobile devices and things like that. Just auto resolution if it's a mobile device. But I can show you some of that stuff as we go through it. Today, like I said at the start of the show, it will do 2 episodes. Obviously this is live and obviously I don't have anything scripted out, so these tasks are just kind of a basic guide, I suppose, of what I kind of want to do. But for the first like hour and a half or so until, well, the first one will go until 10. So until, for the next 2 hours, I'll try to work on the game over sequence. Have some ideas for that, but I don't have it completely scripted out. I'll have to break this task down. Probably just going to have a separate room. The player goes to some place. Other characters come out. Stat scroll, things like that. And of course, because I'm going to do the stat scrolling stuff, I need to actually track and display those stats. So more or less, I think that'll be about 2 episodes worth. Yeah, I decided to do 2 episodes because I didn't want to leave you guys hanging, and I kind of want to do an episode every week. And so far, for the last 35 weeks, I've been able to do one every week. So I feel really bad that I can't do one next week. So trying to make up for that. So I guess we should get started. Game over win. I'll show you the game as it is now first, especially like Quetzalcoatl, you dropped by for the first time in ages, so they blocked me at work. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, I can understand the workplace wanting to block Twitch though, so yeah, I guess it can't be helped, but that's a shame. Yeah, I kind of missed you. I was wondering where you went. But yeah, it's nice to see you again. I guess you have the day off right now. So, and Cirrus says, "Hi, Blue." Hi, Cirrus. Thank you for the email. I did see it this morning. So let's jump into, let's see, I guess GameMaker. Let's start it off. GameMaker, most of you guys who've seen the show before know that I'm using it, but it's a good program for making 2D games. I think it can do 3D games, but I haven't really seen any projects like that. And I'm working on Project Spaghetti. It's not too bad. They made I think we talked about this at a few shows back, but they made the standard edition free, because they used to have a free edition, a standard edition, a professional. And the free edition had a lot of limitations. The standard one was not too bad. I think it's just missing like shaders and a few things, like the ability to plug into modules for making iOS versions and things like that. But standard's pretty powerful, and it's free now, which is good. So let me show you where I'm at. I'll use the keyboard and mouse controls. I don't have a controller plugged in right now. Should be good. So here's the opening tutorial. I guess this is the big change, so this is what I should show.
Ready, set, draw.
So right now text actually shows up. The text does change depending on whether you're using a controller, keyboard, or mouse. At the start of the tutorial, it just tries to pick up what the last input you used was, and then just runs with that throughout the tutorial. So it's not going to keep switching if you turn on controllers and try different control devices. So right now, I started off with the keyboard, so it's going to give me the keyboard controls even though I am able to use the mouse. With the other controls, the aim is locked at the enemies for the most part, but for the mouse, obviously you can move the crosshair around. So if you're not aiming at the enemy to prevent bullets from bouncing around the screen and killing yourself, for example, during a tutorial, just make it so that the crosshair has to be over the enemy before you can shoot, and when it is, you can shoot. They duck, and the one in the back gets hit off the bullet reflection. Then the living one fires the bullet at you, teaching you that yes, you should dodge these bullets. This is the control you need to use to dodge. The bullet obviously is not going to just hit the player because that would be rather unfair if they don't know there is a dodge function, so I slow it down, keep it in front of the player until they actually do dodge. So they can learn that they can dodge the bullet, they see the bullet changes color, and they get points for it, and at the very end it just shows you what your controls are to move. So I'm going to switch to mouse controls, but that's the tutorial. Tried to make it unbreakable. Did my best with that. Let's see, I guess I should show the bullet chamber thing up here. When you're charging the bullet, you can see it changes color there, all the way up to white, which is the exploding bullet. So I think those are the two major changes. And yeah, I didn't show that properly last time, so I guess I wanted to show that. Those are the major things that you can see, so that's where we're at now. Obviously there's other stages. There's the graveyard stage with ghosts. There's the scorpion stage, which Quetzalcoatl was around when I was making, back in November, I think it was, around there, where you can't hit the scorpions from the front. You have to hit them from the back. They do get angry if you try to shoot them, as they should. And then there's the alien level. I think Quetzalcoatl, you were around for some of this as well. But you've got the aliens, they fire lasers. There's that crystal reflection I was talking about where it shimmers red a little bit. You just have to get the aliens to fire the lasers into the crystals. And there's the sepia thing. Got injured, so it turned sepia. As you can see, like these icons here, it's really hard to see the icons. So, have to think about that a little bit. But, for the most part, I think that's all the changes. Let's see what there is. I guess I'm still injured here. But there is like a few other levels in there as well. But let's get started on the game over sequence. So, still thinking about this in some ways, but what I am thinking at the moment anyway is break out my handy paintbrush. That screen's way too big, so let's shrink it down a bit. Okay. What I'm thinking at the moment, let's see, let's get something dirt looking, is, just to make a separate room for the game over, have the player jump out, head to an old-timey outhouse in the middle. Let's see. There's a nice crescent here. There's no moon, so I guess I'll have to hand draw this one. Sorry for my poor drawing skills. So you've got your outhouse in the middle. The player walks to that, jumps in, closes the door behind them, and then the credits start to roll and your stats start to show up. and then have other characters from the game, like the bad cowboys and stuff, kind of show up and start waiting in line. It's silly, but hopefully it's entertaining. So I guess the thing I will need to do is draw an outhouse first. So let's make that a task. Outhouse rough drawing, and that's 0.5. That shouldn't take too long because it is a rough version. I'll just break the rest of this task down because it's kind of a big task if I just leave it as that. And a decent scrimp drops by. Allergies. The heaters are kicking in Japan, so sorry if my voice gives out. Decent scrimp says, sorry about being late. I'm sure you've been proactively moving forward out of the box with decent synergy, like the new results screen. Yes, thank you for the for liking the new results screen and for the positive business message. Yeah, I'm being as proactive as I can. And Decent Scrimp says, is the ready aim in the game yet? Yes, it is. I think you might have just seen it just now, so won't worry about it, but just in case, let me just play it again at the beginning of the tutorial, in case you didn't see it when I did play it last time. It's just at the start of here.
Ready, set, draw.
There you go. My synth voice. Sorry if I'm blowing out any of your speakers with that. Feel free to tune it down. So let's see the outhouse. Get back to the task list. All right. So the other thing I'm going to need to do is make a new room. So game over room. Guess it's just as well you're not at work watching this, because suddenly having a synthetic voice saying ready, set, draw would probably draw some attention. So set the room up. It probably won't take that long. I'm pretty used to it by now, so it shouldn't take too long to set the room up. Get the player moving to it. Like the tutorial sequence, I guess I'm going to have to use some paths. So like in GameMaker, I've got all these paths. This is like the player path. He just walks from the left of the screen to the center. That one was easy. I'm sure this one won't be too bad. I guess I should keep this under game over. Player path. And I'm gonna have to think about how I do enemies, because you're not able to kill them because you're busy going to the bathroom in your outhouse, I suppose. So might have to set them up as a different object just to not have to worry about all the turning the shooting off and everything else. We'll see. We'll see. But let's just make that 0.5. Game over. Let's make it enemies line up outside the outhouse. Okay. So I think that'll do it for that. Let's archive this thing, because I broke the task down. Make a comment and leave that out. Alright, so let's get started. I guess the first thing will be drawing the outhouse. So Quetzalcoatl was around when I was doing a lot of those rough drawings, so I'll be very familiar with this. Let's see, Project Spaghetti. Let's jump into here. And I guess it would be an object, kind of like, a bumper or anything else, except because it's not interactive, you can't actually do anything with it. Maybe making the game over interactive would be interesting anyway. But for now, I'll just keep it paths. Let's see, what's going to be the easiest one to modify? Probably the barrel. And Decent Scrimp heard the voice and said, now for a good old run, cowboy, run. Awesome. Yeah, that would be very very Sinistar-ish. Sinistar-y. It's actually not a bad idea. It'd be a pretty good homage. Run, cowboy, run. And Quetzalcoatl mentions that he's the boss now. Awesome. Okay. Were you the boss back then, or are you the boss recently? you became a boss, congratulations on your promotion. If not, well, congratulations on being the boss, I guess. It's a good place to be. It does make things easier, so I'm happy for you that you are the boss. Let's see, the barrel sizes in the game are pretty small. Let's take a look. Let's try to get some perspective on this. By the way, the combination of the cedar trees in Japan with my allergies and chit-chatting for about 3 hours should kill my voice by the end of the show, but I hope you can forgive me for that. Let's see. In terms of size, it looks like the barrels are about the player size, so it needs to be probably about 4 times, 2 times as wide, 2 times as tall, and that'd be about right, I think, because you'd have something about that big in the middle. So probably doubling the image size is a good way to go. 48, 42, which is still very small, but because I'm using the original Commodore 64 sprite sizes, which is 24 by 21, I think. Let's see. My memory's not very good because obviously I'm forgetting that stuff. 24 by 21, yeah, which is the original Commodore 64 sprite size, which is why I was using it as kind of a base. So let's see, probably the best way to go about this is to stretch this out. Well, let's try stretching it out first. We'll see how that goes. Free translation. All right. Okay, good. I did have it set up in Photoshop to not try to alias things when they get stretched out. Well, hopefully it doesn't do it for me. Okay, good. Yeah, so I turned that option off because I'm working with pixel art, and the last thing you want to do is have like Photoshop try to be helpful and fill in like these half colors along the way to make it look cool. This just takes the nearest neighbor. So it stretches up all the pixels to be exactly as they should be. Let's see. So let's start with the outer shape. Let's get this done. It is basically a toilet, so it shouldn't be that much work to draw. Especially it's an old-timey one. It's not a construction site like one of those blue boxes. Alright, well, let's see. That's good for an outline, I suppose. Let's just fill in. Why did that not work? Alright, never mind. Let's do this the old-fashioned way then. Could probably increase the size of my brush. Let's do that. Get this done a little bit faster. And let's see, one probably keep similar outlines to the other stuff I have in the game. So I probably don't want these super thick borders. And since this is too square, I think I do need to shrink the width of this a little bit. Yeah, do need to do that. Just to make it look more like a proper outhouse. Okay, make sure I'm using the right colors there. And I guess the hard part will be making the crescent here. Start a little bit more to the left. And before I accidentally save over my barrel, I guess I should rename this. Save a copy of the file. And since I do want to have a different color in there, I'll bring in my Commodore 64 palette here. And try to keep the window in the top half of the screen so you guys can see it. The only yellow I have available on my Commodore 64 palette is this one, so I'll do that. Just seeing that C makes me want to write a 64 after it. Okay, so that's that. Let's see, should I... Yeah, I don't think I want to use black because that's just too strong an outline for like the walls, like the boards. Let's try this. That might look a little weird. Yeah, those are too long. Okay, let's try it a little more subtle here. And this is just rough art, so I can go back and fix it later. The main thing is getting it into the game. Well, like Waddle, like my thing is for ever since January, I've been shifting more into the mode of getting the game kind of brushed up rather than adding new things. So even though this is kind of a new thing, it's just to polish off the game. It's not a new level or anything. It's just the game over stuff. So you know, the second half of the year until July, that's what I'll be working on. Brushing things up, making sure all the bugs are out, polishing up all these horrible rough graphics that I've been drawing. And I guess we do need a doorknob. And I'll reuse that yellow. I guess I do need to give a door outline, don't I? So I'm going to need to move that handle over. My bad. Okay, that's that. Wipe that out. I think it's still too far to the right. Yeah, it is. Okay, I'll move it over a little bit there. Yeah, I'll be clearing my throat a lot to get allergies and stuff out of my system, so apologize for the grossness. Hopefully not too much of that gets picked up by the mic. Alright, well there's the door. I guess I could make it a little less strong by going with maybe a gray. Because black is a very strong outline, obviously. And preview-wise, that doesn't look too bad. So let's go with that for closed, and then let's make the open version, because the door's going to have to be open for a little bit anyway. And this is just a matter of probably replacing all of this with gray. Could probably even go with yellow to show that it's lit up inside. Switch to the bigger brush, get this done. Yeah, that's not too bad. Is it gonna be worth doing this to the inside? Or is that just gonna make the picture a little less clear as to what's going on? Yeah, it just kind of blends it in, so I'll keep those out. I'll think about that one for the rough sprite, but I think for now we're good. And let me catch up. Quetzalcoatl mentions we're all programmers, so we're all free spirits as long as the work gets done. I get to run the show any way I want. That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to be in with fellow programmers. As long as you don't have to put on a show for the people who want to act more businessy. It's nice to be with programmers because you can usually be yourself. And programmers, it's very easy to judge whether you're getting your work done or not. So usually you don't have the same problems as other types of employees with, appearance being everything. I should say the appearance of working being everything. So let's see, let's get these out. PNG, alright, Outhouse, and this is the open version, so Outhouse open. I guess I should ask, how have you been doing? Since it has been a while, hope you're doing okay. Alright, those are my sprites. I probably don't need to update them, but I'll keep Photoshop open just in case. So let's drop them in. And let's get going with the game. So sprite, I could drop it under bumper, as it is kind of a bumper, so I'll just drop it into here, rather than create a new group for just the outhouse. Outhouse. Who knows, maybe later could use it as a bumper. I don't need that. Objects. Outhouse. Let's make the default closed since that's going to be the one I use more often. Modify mask. Doesn't really need a collision, so maybe I should take the collision off. Well, as long as I don't do collision checking against anything, it shouldn't stop stuff. And as long as I don't make the object solid, the cowboy should be able to walk into it, so let's go with that. I do need to add the open version, so let's add that in. Outhouse open. Obviously, if I animate it, it's going to look crazy, but I'm just going to switch from one to the other. May have to add a few more frames in between to show the door being opened, but we'll see. So next thing is to create an object for that. Let me make sure everything's still on the screen. Yeah, okay. Yeah, as I explain every week, I do have an really old monitor, so it's square, it's not widescreen, even though that's how I'm broadcasting, so the stuff at the bottom gets cut off. So I always need to be careful about that. Definitely jump in and tell me if I'm doing stuff off screen, because I can stop doing that. Barrel. So duplicate that as a base, call it the outhouse, turn off solid so that the player can walk into it. Yeah, I guess if someone does shoot the outhouse, it should give off like the barrel spray. I may not ever have to do that, but we'll see. I also do need to add, let me see, bumper. Okay, there's no create for the bumper, so I don't have to worry about that. So in the create, I want to turn that image speed off so that it doesn't keep showing the door opening and closing, because that's the default. So I think that's image speed, and if I turn that to 0, it should be okay. Just in case, let's set image index to 0 as well. So that'll use that closed version. So when it pops up in the game, that should be what shows up. Let's see, bumper, outhouse. Okay, there we go. So I should be able to drop this into a room now. Should be good to go. Don't think I need to do anything else with it, so I'll save that. And that takes care of the rough drawing one. Not too bad. At least that's easy to judge the time on. Set the room up. So let's add a game over room in here. Do I already have one? I might already have one in here. Is it system? Yeah, there's definitely a game over room. This is for the menu, so I guess I should do something else. Let's call it room. Well, I do have a room victory. That's also a game over screen. So let's add a level. Let's keep it as a level. Eek. I don't want to start from scratch, so let me duplicate something. Let's duplicate the town. Alright, there we go. Now I have a base to start with. So, room. Alright, let's just call it room outhouse. That way I'll know what it is. And I'll get rid of a lot of these nodes, I think. Do we need any of these? I probably don't need any of these, actually, so let's get rid of them. I could keep the move paths in there. Those, just to let you know, the pink triangles are basically places that enemies can move. The blues are where items can drop when they randomly appear. And then those reds that I deleted were the like the obstacles, like the barrels and the tombstones and stuff that show up that the bullets can bounce off of. I'll keep the pink triangles just in case, I have an enemy moving around freely, while they're waiting for the player to be done in the outhouse or whatever. So let's do that. Let's duplicate, copy selection. Well, let's just add them in the right way. See, there you go. Obstacle node, enemy node. Well, let me keep this up here. Obstacle node, enemy node, bat node for the graveyard, move node, and pickup node. So I'm just going to fill in those move nodes there. And I'll get rid of these last enemy nodes because they're not going to appear randomly, so I don't need that. And there we go. We've got my town level with just the basic stuff. I guess I could get rid of the one in the middle. And let's add that outhouse in first. Bumper, outhouse, boom. Put that in the middle. Okay, I think it's more or less in the middle. Let me check the position. Wow, well spotted. 180 by 160. Yeah, that's a nice round number. I'll go with that. So there it is in the middle. And now I need to actually have the player able to go to this room. So I need to set that up. Room, outhouse. So just like adding a level into the game, otherwise I have to go into scripts, settings, global persistent, I think first. So this is where I added some of that stuff to handle, mobile devices and stuff. If it's a mobile device, I don't worry about having like a resolution changing option and stuff, so added that in. I just need to look for any place where there's room stuff. So level list, this is the main thing. I do have that room victory level, but I'm going to squeeze the outhouse one in here. In fact, these are temporary levels, but no, alright, I'll keep it. I'll keep them there. Just to remind me that they are there. And even though I don't use music for any of the levels yet, I'm just going to add that so there's no problems. And I think that's mostly what I need to do. There's other things I need to change. Files should be fine. Sound should be fine. Game. Yeah, I do need to change some of the game stuff because these are by level. So for that level 9, I don't want to have stuff spawning in. So I'll turn spawn off. I'll just keep enemy count 0. Fire frequency, yeah, I'll keep it in there in case it is used, but it should be okay. Let's see, globals, persistent. Let me make sure I'm getting my rooms straight here. 9 is the outhouse, 10 is the victory, so I guess I should set this up for 10 too, just in case. Okay, just to make sure enemies don't appear during that. So that handles the enemies. Bumper spawn, I do need to handle that as well. So that it doesn't try to spawn bumpers in when there's no place to spawn them. So there's nothing there. The obstacle count is just 0, even though technically the outhouse is an obstacle. Okay. I think that's good for that. The other stuff is probably all in Room Manager. Yeah, I think the rest of it's going to be in the Room Manager objects, so let's close those out. Head down to the Room Manager and Room Start. Room Colors, there we go. I think for the most part the defaults are fine because the defaults are set up for the town level. So, for example, to make sure that the UI elements are visible even when those rooms are dark, like the graveyard level, I have it work on the ghost stage, the alien stage, and then the snow stage has some other stuff that's special too. But for the most part, it's just set for daylight, so I don't need to change anything there. Alright, well that's not too bad. If everything works, I should be able to jump to level 9 and have an outhouse sitting there. The thing I'm a little worried about is whether it'll try to spawn enemies in, even though there are no enemies to spawn, because that's the default behavior. If RM spawn is true, okay. Looks like I'm handling it. Let's find out the hard way. Let's see what happens. So when I jump to 9, if it crashes, obviously I forgot to do something. The slapdash way to test things. I should be able to just jump. Alright. Well, that kind of works. Obviously the player's still there, so I have to worry about that. One problem is that because there are no enemies, that means the player's reached the victory condition already. So I have to account for that, because it says, there's no enemies, or theoretically you've got 0 enemies, and you've killed 0 enemies, so you've completed the victory condition. It's time to move on to the next room. So it'll jump me to the next room, which is no good. Need to work on that. But, okay, Quetzalcoatl did get back to me on the becoming the boss promotion and an 8% increase. Nice! Congratulations, buddy. Nice. I love hearing good news from you guys. Makes me happy. Let's see. Okay. Room manager, where should I do that? Check. Well, let me see how I'm doing it for the tutorial level, because the tutorial level, but that does have a spawn array. Well, let's see if we can trick it. May not be the best way to do this, but let's see if I can trick it into thinking there are enemies that I haven't killed, because theoretically they will be coming out eventually. I do need to do that in spawn array. So game enemy spawn array. Alright, let's try 2 enemies and do that here too. Let's see what it does with that, because I can always use that to jump to the next room, just kill 2 enemies behind the scenes. Okay, well it didn't crash, which is good. And since that's not set to solid, obviously it's just sitting there in the middle of the room. I do notice it's a little too low on the screen. It should be around here. So that's one thing. And then the other thing will be getting the player to spawn off like they do with the opening. But that's the next step anyway. So let's just move this up, and I think that'll do it for this task anyway of setting up a new room. There. Do I need to keep this stuff up here? I might eventually get rid of this stuff anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. The bullet chamber, leaving it up on the screen does kind of tell the player that they can shoot, so it might be a good idea to get rid of that. Yeah, when the room starts. Hard to say. The only dangerous thing about getting rid of it is what happens if the player jumps out and jumps to another level. Because right now I think it's just spawned whenever the player is created, which makes it easy. I'll leave it up there for now, but let me leave a note to myself about this one. Bullet chamber UI. I need a way to turn it on and off. Turn off for probably the tutorial as well. For example, why show the bullet chamber if the player can't shoot yet? Start and game over. So adding a method to do that is probably a good idea. Don't. It's probably not that important to do it now, but I'll just leave it there in the list. I guess I did get the room set up, so I'll move that to done. As expected, that wasn't too bad. The next thing is the player path, so once I move that outhouse up, I'll do that. So I'll move that down, move that up. Spread these out a little bit. Oops, don't want to move the borders. Okay. Yeah, I guess these new ones I added are below this border, so yeah, alright, well, it's not a big deal. But that moves the outhouse up, so that's fine. Let's get started on the player path. So let's see, how am I doing the player path in the tutorial? It's only a week ago, but I'm very forgetful, so when created. Player freeze tutorial. Okay, I think it's all done through the tutorial object, which is down here in system. And it starts the timeline, which in GameMaker is just a series of instructions. And it looks like the first instruction is to tell the player to stop, don't let the player control the player character, and put the player on a path. So all that's in the timeline. So as long as I create a game over object and have a timeline for the game over, it should work exactly the same way. So let's duplicate this. And I'll call it Outhouse. I mean, it's a game over sequence, but I don't want to use the term game over because it might be used elsewhere. In fact, I think it is used elsewhere, so. Oh, well, yeah, I can't do that. Let's see. Ending. Ending, there we go. That's an appropriate name for it. Ending. So, current ending states. It's not a tutorial, so I don't need any of these things. Maybe I'll keep one variable here for, I don't know, may not need any variables. Let's just get rid of that. Keep track of the device to use it. Yeah, there's no tutorial, so I don't need to keep track of the input device. All I need to do is start that timeline. When I destroy it, yeah, I guess if I jump to another stage in the middle of this, I should be able to stop and reset the timeline into the path, turn the player back on, so that's all fine. Aim check, this is all for tutorial stuff, so get rid of that. Dodge check and get rid of that. The second dodge check and get rid of that. And if in a shoot tutorial, obviously the player's not going to be in a shoot tutorial. Well, I guess depending on what they're doing in the outhouse, but dodge tutorial, move tutorial. Okay, so pretty stripped down. When the room's over, obviously destroy the instance, so that's fine. Jumping to the next room should destroy this instance, so that's good. And I just need to make a different timeline now. So let's call this timeline ending. That's all the same. Getting it set up is the exact same. Stop the player from unfreezing, that's the same. Spawn enemies, I guess I will do that, but it'll be later on in the process. I don't think I need a ready set draw for the outhouse sequence, so let's get rid of that. Boom. Maybe that'd be a good time to do the Sinistar run, cowboy run. Have the cowboy run to the outhouse. And I don't need shoot tutorial. This will be pretty easy to set up. Player danger. The player danger variable, that's the variable that determines that the bullets kind of stop before they hit the player. And aim order true is what tells the bad cowboys to shoot, so I don't need any of this stuff. Don't need the dodge tutorial to pause the timeline, because it's not waiting for the player to do anything. Unfreeze the player. No, yeah, I don't really need the player to move at the end either, so that's fine. Restart enemy spawning. No, that's fine, because it's not going to start spawning random enemies, so that's get rid of that. Don't need to do that. Don't need to start, dropping items in the room because the players won the game. And doesn't have to do the tutorial again, it's just the ending, so there's none of that. And destroy self, alright. Yeah, okay, so this is pretty threadbare. Since I will need enemies to show up eventually, I suppose it'll depend on how long it takes the player to get to the outhouse and close the door. Let's say 5 seconds, for example. It's one bad thing about the timeline is I don't think you can use room speed. I don't think it lets you. No. So this is one part where if you do change the frame rate in GameMaker, things will start to break. I just have to remember that if you use timelines, I guess. Let's see. Set the path. And I'm going to need to set a new path, so... And I'm going to need to set enemy paths, too. Make sure not to end the level too early. Yeah, I don't need to do that. Okay. Yeah, and they don't really need to dodge, so I can... Well, I'll leave them capable of dodging just in case. But I don't think I need to worry about that. We'll just call this ending. So we'll start with 2 enemies because it's the same situation. Enemy 1, enemy 2. And the next thing is to set that player path. So let's go and make some paths. Duplicate the opening. Path. PL ending. Since the player started from the left and moved to the right for the opening, might as well have them come from the right and move left for the ending. Just check where this is. Whoop. Okay, so 130 by 152. Yeah, please stop deleting that for me, thank you. I need to turn this snap down, that's the problem. Oof, that looks horrible. Let's just go 1-1. Okay, and then the outhouse is kind of in the middle. So we should probably have the player come from a little bit down below. And select room background. Okay, well, I should probably actually show the outhouse, because that'll make it easier to adjust. There we go. Much easier. So the player should come to here. And then go up. Yeah, there's no obstacles, so I guess I could just have the player do this. Come from the bottom right. Come here. And then go right up into there. And then at the end of the path, just have the player disappear. Let's do 2 paths, because I do need to change the outhouse to the open door version, so let's do that. 181, 180, 180. Okay, so if the player stops there, maybe. That should be good. Okay, path PL ending 1. Hopefully I don't need 10 paths for the ending, but just in case. It's the old programmer in me that wants to open up a lot of extra numbers in between just in case, because you always run out. And let's make another path for going into the outhouse itself. That one's going to be easy. Make sure I get my numbers right. So 180 by 177, let's make that 175 so it's easier to remember. 180 by 175. 180 by 175. Whoa! What the heck? What is going on with that? I'm not sure what just happened there. I'm glad I was able to undo it. I hope I was able to undo it. And 140. Yeah, that should be okay. So I've got there walking to the outhouse and then jumping in to the outhouse. I do need endings for the enemies, so let's make that now, I guess. It's kind of getting started on the next task as well. M01 ending. And that one's going to be simpler. Let's not even show the grid. Having one appear from out here. Now let's see, where should I line them up? This would probably be, I guess, cuter if they're like all lined up after each other, so let's put them outside there. Y160, 200. Might overlap the outhouse a little bit, so 205. Okay, that's one. Duplicate that for 2. FPM02 ending. So next in line, turn the grid off. 215, 220. Okay, that'll be number 2. Have him come from down here, maybe. Actually, let's have him come from the other side of the screen. Get a little activity over there. And at the very end, he's going to have to turn left. So let's do that. Add an extra one in there. Okay. Well, that's 2 enemies worth anyway. Probably have more lining up as it goes on, but that gives me some paths to work with. So path PL ending 01 is the first thing I need to set. And I need to set that here. Path PL ending 01. Okay, yeah, walking slow I think is, well, he's trying to go to the bathroom, so let's have him walk his usual fast speed. No, I think it's better if you walk slow, because then the player knows that they can't control him because the speed's different. So we'll keep that, and hopefully it takes about however many seconds to do it. Path EM01 ending 12, these are all the same. I guess we could see what happens. So I've got TL ending. Just need to set this so it's not the tutorial. Okay, so if I spawn this ending object, which I can do in the room, it should handle everything for me. What is this? Room manager. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, room manager can be in there. In fact, I'll keep this in a separate place just so I know where it is. Know that it's there. I don't want them to overlap. So that should create the ending object, which kicks off the timeline, starts the player moving to the outhouse. I guess I do need to switch the outhouse door in the timeline. So let's see, 300 seconds. Let's add a new step. Step 120. I'll have to adjust these later based on the timing, but I need to change the outhouse image index to the open version, which is 1. So now it's the open door. I should probably leave a comment on that. Open the outhouse door. And then also, once that's open, maybe like half a second later, get the player moving on the second path. And that shouldn't take them too long to get there. 180. Let's turn the player's visibility off. Let me just check the GameMaker thing for that. Is it just visible? Just want to know what the script is because I'm always doing it with checkboxes and stuff. Okay, it's just visible. So I should be able to set the player visible to false to make them disappear. And probably at the same time switch the outhouse back to the closed door version. Make the player disappear. Outhouse door. And because I am setting the player visible to false, I should definitely make sure that I set it to visible when I end that. Where is it? Bumper system ending. So when I destroy the ending object, I should definitely make sure to set that back, because otherwise I might have to deal with an invisible player, which is cool if it's like Resident Evil Remake or something, but this is not that. So player visible, true. Okay. So that's pretty good. You guys are kind of quiet in the chat. I hope I'm not just like kind of running off in a direction. This is interesting. Feel free to ask questions or make comments if you want to. Definitely enjoy it. I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything like weird, like my microphone's off or anything like that. So just let me know. So ending, I think I have everything in place I need. I guess the only thing to do is test it now. I'm sure weirdness will happen, so better to test it earlier than later. And let's see what happens. So start, jump to room 9. Yeah, I still have the player facing right, so I need to fix that. Yeah, not too bad. Worked out better than I thought it would. Let's see. Bad cowboy is able to move a little faster. Okay, they're kind of in line. I do need to fix the red cowboy so they can get out of line. And because the reason the player is able to move, by the way, is because the timeline does end, and at the end of the timeline it destroys the ending object, which allows the player to go visible again, and it turns off all the freezing stuff, so just makes the player active again. So I need to handle that. But in terms of the ending sequence, it's not too bad. The player did seem to like jump down a little bit before they went into the outhouse, so it's a little odd. The enemies don't need to wait so long to start showing up, and I should probably stagger them a little bit too. So let's do that. Let's add another step in at 240. No, 210. Let's add another one in at 210. Let's cut that. 240, 270. Let's wait a second before the other enemy comes out. So I just wanted to create the first enemy. And in this one, I just want to create the second enemy. And let's see, I do need to fix some of those paths. Player 1's kind of weird. 165 is the one I should be using, right? Yeah, 165 is where it ends. Okay, I'm using 175, my bad. Okay, so that should fix that problem of the jump down. That's one thing down. The other one's the ending, the enemy. This guy needs to come left a little bit. Yeah, that's not too bad. 205. Okay. Let's try that. Oh yeah, I need to change the player's facing direction too. Okay, the timing's really good. That works out. First enemy shows up, gets in line. Next enemy shows up, gets in line. Probably should come a little bit lower. And then I can just keep stacking the enemies up. So adding more enemies. So let's change first off the player's facing direction, because that does need to change. Player direction to face left, up left first. Because otherwise, the reason I have to set that by hand is because if I let the path take over naturally, the problem is the mouse. I do have the player automatically facing the mouse if I don't override it, so that could make things a little weird. He'd moonwalk to the bathroom like he was doing. So what I could do is get rid of this point actually. So, oops. Get rid of this point and then make them face up at the end of this path. So I need to change this one back to 175. So make them face up here. Okay, that should fix that. For the enemy path, do need to change that a little bit. Opening, ending. I need to stretch this out just a little bit more. They don't need to be so dramatic coming from the left side of the screen, so let's try that. Then we can just add in the rest of the enemies and take a quick break. Okay, so now the player's facing the right direction. Cowboy's coming from off screen. Hopefully this guy gets to the front of the line first. Yes. Okay, they stack up good. And of course it ends at 600 seconds, but getting there. Let's see, so I can squeeze more enemies on the screen. I guess I should move this over a little bit. 220 should be okay. So 205, so they should be about 15 pixels apart. So let's duplicate that and start adding in some of the other enemies. This guy can come from over here. So if the last one was 225 plus 15, 230, 240, that's actually right. Okay, that could be the ghost. I guess it'd be good to show the enemies in order of their appearance. So the ghost, the scorpion showing up for the outhouse, sure. Path, EM04 ending, okay. Let's have the scorpion show up from over here. And 255. Next is the alien. A lot of weird uses of the outhouse, I guess. Ending. Probably should shift the outhouse left, actually, if I'm going to be doing this. Alien can come from down here. 260, 270. Well, maybe we'll make them come from the top. And let's see, after the aliens, the snowman. Because snowmen need to use outhouses too, so 6. Ending. Let's make this guy come from maybe way over here. And 285. let's see, after the snowman is the giant boss, I suppose. Okay, if he fits on the screen. He should just come from the right, because he's giant, so he'll overlap everything. That was 280, so 295. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's add this in. Spawn enemies, spawn enemies. So I can just keep adding these steps. Let's see, 300. Just to get some variety going, 345, 370, 390. So this is spawn enemy 1. I should probably label these, it'll make it easier for me. Spawn enemy 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, and one more. I guess the boss should take a little more time than the others to jump out, so 450. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Enemy 3, 3, and this has to be the ghost. I don't think I want to spawn a bat having to use the bathroom, that'd be a little weird. Ghosts don't dodge, so let's get rid of that. I don't think any of the other ones dodge, so it should be okay to do this. Spawn enemy 4. Scorpion. Get over here. 4, 4. Yeah, base speed. Five. Alien. Snowman. So 6. And the last one, the boss. And the boss does actually have a cooldown, so I guess I'll leave that on the boss. Did I just call him boss? Boss cowboy? Yeah, boss cowboy. You can see it over there on the other side of the screen, so boss cowboy. And 7. Alright. Oh yeah, enemy 7. Make sure I did do that right for the other ones too. 6. 4, yep. And 3, yep. Okay, well, let's see what happens. I guess I should pause the timeline at the end so that it doesn't automatically jump the player out of the outhouse, but let's see what happens. Make sure everyone shows up properly, doesn't overlap. Ah, there we go, ghost, okay. The ghost doesn't have the same variables that the other guys do, so I do need to worry about that. There's no ghost base speed, I think, is the problem. What is the EM speed, EM base speed? No, it does have a base speed, so that's not the problem. It's something else. And I'm doing all that in timeline. Ending timeline. Spawn enemy 3. EM freeze might be the thing the ghost doesn't have. Yeah, let's see. I may need to add a freeze into the ghosts and other enemies. We'll see. That might have been the problem. Let me just make sure it doesn't crash on the ghost. It'll probably still crash because the scorpion won't have a freeze either. But as long as it doesn't crash on the ghost, that means... Ugh. Doesn't crash on the ghost, that means at least it was the EM freeze problem. And, oh, hey, noob, drops by. Forgot to change the comment on number 5. It still says to, thank you. Did I? Let's see. This is Ghost. Get Step begin event line 7 if. Okay, so it's something when I'm making the ghost that I'm not doing properly. I'll have to think about that, but Noob, thank you for dropping by, and forgot to change the comment on number 5. It still says 2. Not that it ruins the program or anything. Never mind stream lag. Okay, yeah, that's the one I noticed afterwards. But thank you for pointing that out. I do appreciate that, because when you guys do point out like errors in scripting, it saves me a ton of time. You know, obviously a comment, it's not going to change anything, but except my understanding of what I'm doing later. But especially like with parentheses, I'm notorious for getting the wrong number of parentheses in there and then spending like half a day trying to figure out what went wrong. So when you guys spot code like that, Noob, definitely helps. I appreciate it. Yeah, don't worry about stream lag or anything else. That's just the nature of Twitch. So, ghost step begin event line 7 if something. Well, let's find out what that is. It's in the ghost itself that's having the problem. Shoot frequency, shoot cooldown, dodge, wait. I guess it does have a dodge, wait. Yeah, I'm angry. Yeah, what could be going wrong with this? It's in step. Dodge is 1. That's really odd. Ending. Ghost. There is no EM freeze, I don't think. Let me just check. There might actually be an EM freeze. Let me see something. Enemy spawn. It's not this one. It's enemy creates. Okay, everyone does have an EM freeze, so let's put that back in. That's obviously not the problem. For now, let me just try the Scorpion and see if that has another problem. Because if it's just the ghost, I can zero in on the ghost. If it's everyone except for the cowboys, then I know that it's something shared by everyone. He shows up, he shows up. Scorpion shows up, Alien shows up, Snowman shows up, Bad Cowboy show up. They just don't go on the path, which is obviously no good, but they're showing up, so it's just a ghost problem. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a quick break, because I do need one to recharge my voice. It is allergy season here in Japan. So I'm going to show the animated short that I always show, and since, well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I will be going to GDC next week, the Game Developers Conference next week, so I won't be around next weekend. To make up for that, I'm doing 2 episodes today. So I have 2 animated shorts, but this is the first one. So I will be back in 7 minutes. This one's a little longer than the other one, so the next break will be a little shorter. But I just want to warn you in advance. For those of you watching this later on YouTube, it's the thing that shows up at the beginning of the show. Hope it doesn't scare too many of you off. I will be back in 7 minutes, because that's how long the animated short is. But before I do go, Noob does mention Twitch seems to have stopped sending notifications to me when people start streaming. I feel like I've missed quite a lot. Yeah, Twitch, something's fishy. I've been having the same thing, so I know what you're talking about. You know, even though I'm following a few people, it's not, I don't know, it's not making me aware of what they're doing very well. Not sure why it's doing that. Also noticed the lag on Twitch seems to, I don't know. There's issues. I hope you guys are not minding it too much. And Noob does mention what that error, the error specifically mentions a variable underbar, underbar B, underbar, underbar. It might be checking out what the variables actually do in the event. Yeah. The thing about that variable is I don't actually have any variables named like underbar, underbar B, so it's probably trying to warn me about something else. Maybe it's an alarm variable or something like that, and that's just how it's shown behind the scenes. So that is going to take a little bit of debugging. The other guys are showing up, they're just not going on the path, so I need to figure that out. But, well, the second half of the show will be debugging, I suppose. But let's jump to the task list. The player path is working fine, at least, so let's get that out of the way. enemies line up outside the outhouse. Obviously, that's the thing I need to work on after the break, so that's what I will do when I get back. Thank you for waiting while I took that quick break. Let me jump off the desktop here for a second. And for those of you who didn't catch the intro, this is Blue Tengu's live game development show, where we show everything that goes into making a game from concept to completion. All of the information about where you can find us is in the Twitch info down below if you're watching us live, or in our YouTube profile for those of you catching us later. But just in case, we're at www.bluetengu.com. Btengu on Twitter, facebook.com Blue Tengu Studio, youtube.com Blue Tengu Studio for those of you watching the live stream if you want to catch past episodes, and Twitch TV Blue Tengu for those of you watching us on YouTube who want to catch the live show. The game we're making is Project Spaghetti, a top-down 2D cowboy shooter where the bullets fired bounce around the screen with a pinball mechanic. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, I won't be here next week because I'll be in the States attending the Game Developers Conference, good old San Francisco, pretty close to my hometown of Sacramento. So I'll be putting on a longer live show today to get 2 weeks worth of work done and 2 episodes for you guys. And I will break those into 2 episodes on YouTube as well so that it does feel like 2 proper episodes. And thanks to a hint from Noob, actually, in the chat, I think I figured out what's going on with the ghosts, the problem that we were having before. So let me jump into GameMaker and see if I figured out the problem. The hint was, even though it only said underbar, underbar, B, underbar, underbar, it's like, what is that? It's just that B. When I took the break, it's like about 10 seconds, stepping out of the room. It's like B, B, ghost, bell. Let me show you why. In the ghost level, there's this bell. So normally when you shoot the ghosts, the bolts just go through them. But if you hit the bell, it gets them upset. They start chasing you for a little while until the bell stops ringing. I died there, but the whole point of this level is there's a risk-reward thing going on. If you don't hit the bell, the ghosts just wander around, so they're pretty innocent, easy to dodge, but you can't kill them, so you can't progress. So you do have to hit the bell to get them to start chasing you, Pac-Man style, and then you can kill them. The problem with the ghosts was, in this room, there's no bell. And what they're doing is they're checking to see if the bell's ringing or not to decide whether to be angry or not. And since there's no bell in the room, they probably came to that point where it's like, if the bell is ringing, then they're like, wait, there's no bell, crash. I think that's why these other guys are showing up, because they don't have this external condition that they need to worry about. So I think that's the problem. I'm almost, 99% sure that's the problem. I think it was in the step event. It was either in step or begin step. But it's probably maybe begin step. Yeah, see here, if the bell is ringing. So it needs that object's bell. What I could do to get around it, I suppose, I could obviously throw a bell into the outhouse room and just hide it somewhere. That's one possible solution. But just to make the code more robust, maybe it's just better to not have check the bell to make sure it exists before, making this check. Because then I could throw ghosts wherever I wanted to in the future. And Noob, thank you for that hint. Just writing down that B just kind of made me think about the B, just that little extra bit that kind of lodged that letter into my head and got me thinking towards the bell. So I appreciate that, and streaming does definitely help. You guys make a great extra pair of eyes. So what I think I will do is check if an instance exists of the bell before doing this stuff. So let's add that in. It is an extra check, and it doesn't make sense on the level where there is a bell, but let me just make sure I'm using that right as well. Because in script it tells me if I'm using it right, but GML instance exists. Yep. It should return true and false, so I should be okay. So that should check if there's a bell. Check if the room has a bell. For my comments, and let's block that code out. So it shouldn't go in there if there's no bell in the room. Let's see if that does it. I need to turn the ghost back on. Let's get these scripts out of the way so I don't keep having to look for this thing. Spawn enemy 4. It was enemy 3 is the ghost. So let's uncomment that. And that should be good to go. Freeze is true. I think the reason the other enemies are not going on the path is that I handled movement for EM freeze for the bad cowboys, but not for the other ones. But not entirely sure. There could be another problem, actually. The other problem could be making the paths too close to the edge of the screen. Let me bump those up a little bit, just to be on the safe side. Well, it's definitely not a problem in that case. So I don't think that's going to be my magic solution. But, oh well. It's going to be something else. Let's at least make sure the ghost is showing up. Because if he is, then we're kind of set for debugging just one thing at a time. So the player walks to the outhouse, opens the door, goes in. I should probably adjust those paths a little bit. Yep, ghost showed up. Awesome. Not moving on the path, obviously, which is not a good thing, but the boss cowboy does move on the path. No? Boss cowboy's just doing his own thing. Okay, well, there we go. Did I not set this up right? Straight curve, closed. Make sure I got this set up. Yeah, precision 4, that's fine. Yeah, I did duplicate, so it's not that. Path EM07 ending. Why is the boss the only one that's kind of free to move and do his own thing? Spawn enemy 7. Path EM4. Boss cowboy. Wow. Okay, well, we've got multiple problems to start digging into. But the ghost is showing up, which is a good thing. Let's see. Where am I doing freeze stuff? I guess that's one thing to figure out. Why would some enemies move on paths and others not? And Noob mentioned 2 tips. One is that there is a drag from the control tab specifically for checking the number of instances of a particular object. 2 is if you want to put the closing triangle bracket, you can right-click on it. The right-clicking places wherever it was at the end. Right-clicking places wherever it was at the end for any drag and drop icon. I see. That's nice. Okay. Noob gave me some great GameMaker hints, and I'm going to go ahead and employ those right now so you guys can see the hints if you're watching the video later as well and you can't see the chat. But first thing is there is something over here that checks the number of instances. I think it's one of these, right? Yes, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I completely forgot about that because I don't do it very often. But there is something from the control tab that actually does specifically check the instances without having to use script, so it makes it a little more legible, which is great. So let's check for the bell, and larger than 0. And let's get rid of that. That was hint number 1 from Noob. Thank you very much. And hint number 2 is this. Let's get rid of that. So if you right-click, right-clicking places wherever it was at the end for any. Right-click on it. Okay, let's try this. Right-click. Okay, got it. So you right-click on the actual icon there. Alright, so if I'm here at the start block and I want to just add the closing bracket, I can just right-click on it over here, and it adds it for me in the right place. Thank you, Noob. Those are awesome hints. Those will speed me up a lot in the future, especially when these UI things get out of control. That is awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Ending. What I could do for debugging purposes is, because everyone's acting a little weird, what I could do is, just to make sure it is a specific problem with, you know, ghosts and scorpions and things like that, what I could do here is change this to bad cowboy and see if then all of a sudden he gets on the right path, because if he does, then it is a problem with like ghosts and scorpions. If bad cowboy number 3 freezes, then obviously it's a problem with just the way I've got things set up, like either the paths or something else. Okay, 1 shows up, 2 show up, 3 shows up, and goes to the right place. So, it is a problem with the other enemy types. This time around, the boss cowboy's not going nuts, which is good in some ways, bad in others. Like, why did it just go nuts that one time? So, and I think he's overlapping the ghost, so you can't see the ghost anymore. Let's see, make the ghost come from the upper left, maybe, for a start, just so they don't overlap. And it's obviously a problem with the way I've got other enemy types set up. So maybe there's something in here. Feel free to shoot again. Move, dodge, step. The enemy isn't frozen. Okay, it's probably something where I'm stopping their motion. Step, if the enemy isn't frozen. And there's no step for bad cowboy, but there is a step for the ghost. So I'll bet that could be it. I don't want to say I bet because it may not be it. But I should add the same stuff in here. So if the unfreeze is equal to false. Let me make sure I'm doing it exactly the same here. If the enemy isn't frozen. In fact, let's just copy and paste this. That's the easy way to do it. Okay. If the unfreeze is false, and then I'm going to use noob's hint. Boom. Put that there. Also have this if, the else for later, but I'm just going to leave it blank for now because I may not use it. Let's see if that gets the ghost working. If it does, then that's the problem. And Noob mentions with the whole right-click trick, it doesn't always put it in the right place, but when you are bumping out a large portion, it places it at the very end of the code, useful for quickly placing a bunch of drag and drop icons in order. Yeah, I guess if you wanted to add a new one somewhere in the middle, then yeah, you'd have to do it by hand. But if it's just tacking it onto the end, that seems to do the trick. Very useful, especially creating a bunch of objects really fast. Now, if the ghost moves, oh, whoops, I still have it as a bad cowboy. My bad. My bad cowboy. Ending. Let's change that guy back to the ghost. That wasn't a very useful session. Let's see, ghost, dodge. Yeah, I don't think it's the dodge stuff that I'm leaving out that's causing it. It's probably that frozen stuff. Let's see. Yes, the ghost is moving. Okay, that was the problem. Because all these enemies behave very differently, so they all kind of do their own thing with the step event. It's definitely taking the long way around. I can fix that, but they're all using their own step events, which means I have to override their step events with that frozen thing. First, let's fix that path before I forget. It's way too roundabout. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So now if I just add that in to the rest of these guys. So we've got Scorpion, have to do it for that step. and snowman. Have to do it for the snowman. Boom. I guess I should throw the else's in there just in case so I remember them in the future, but well, if I'm not using them, let's just get rid of them. Because if it's something I need to think about later, then I can do that later. No use having just worthless code in there, because then it'll be like, 3 months down the line, why am I doing it this way? And the reason is no reason whatsoever. Ghost and snowman's fine. Scorpion is fine. And the last one is the boss cowboy. Yeah, he has a separate step too, which is why he wasn't working. Okay. Fingers crossed that should get everyone moving, getting in line for the bathroom. And Bone Crusher mentions why drag and drop. Not quite sure I understand your question. Maybe Noob does understand your question and can reply, but specifically, you're asking why drag and drop? Or do you mean the right-clicking part? Like, for example, why does it only work with drag and drop icons? Or why using drag and drop and not script? Just let me know. I'll answer the question as soon as I can. If someone else doesn't field it for me first. So hopefully everyone's set up. But welcome, Bone Crusher. Thank you. And Noob mentions for me it's easier to find some code instead of looking through a huge script. Yeah. Oop. Everyone's kind of getting in place. Oh, the alien. I forgot to set up the alien. But drag and drop, yeah. If this is your question, if it is your question, I'm kind of similar to Noob. I think when I first started, I tried to do everything with drag and drop. In some cases, the UI stuff looked kind of nasty. Like if there was a lot of ifs and elses and switch statements and stuff like that, the drag and drop stuff made it really hard to debug. Like for example, if you're working in Unreal, for example, something I've run into lately as well is that if you're using Unreal's latest scripting system, the Blueprint system, for example, everything's visual, which makes it nice and easy to get things set up. But later on, when you start to debug, you have way too much visual stuff all over the place, and you have to keep jumping around. Whereas if it was just in code, you just do a quick, find, and then boom, it's right there. So there's drawbacks to using like drag and drop icons instead of scripting. I'm kind of using a hybrid of both. I think over time I'm moving more towards scripting, but if I can get away with making something clear visually, I do try to do that. Need to be better personally about dividing scripts up by function so that I can, name them all properly, make it easier to find stuff. Because I have noticed as time goes on that it's harder to find exactly what I'm looking for. Like, wait a minute, where is it that I was doing this? And then I have to start digging through all these like menus and stuff to find it. Whereas if it was just one giant, thing of code with, functions and everything else, lined up, it'd be a lot easier to do that stuff. It's probably personal preference. There are some things that you just can't do with drag and drop in GameMaker. So over time, you do kind of move towards scripting a little more and more. But I hope that was your question. I hope the Noob and my answer kind of answered that for you. Okay. Boom. There we go. Bone Crusher did comment on it. Sorry, the stream is kind of lagging for me too. Bone Crusher did mention like why do you use drag and drop and not script? Yeah, so it did answer that question. I have been moving towards script more and more, but I still do like some of the visual stuff. Like when I jump into Alien. Alright, that's kind of messy, but I don't know, just being able to see this stuff at a glance and just the icon, the visual icons of it, just kind of seeing that at a glance. Alright, that's controlling movement rather than, putting it in here, for example. It's just personal preference. But like I said, over time I am moving more and more towards script because doing the visual stuff, having nested ifs and elses just kind of looks nasty over time. So let's see. The bad cowboy is getting there way too fast. The alien needs to be fixed. Scorpion needs to be offset to the right. So those are a couple of fixes. If I can keep them all in my head here. Scorpion was this guy, so let's move him off to the right a little bit more. 260. Bad cowboy also needs to be moved off to the right a little more. 305. And the bad cowboy's showing up way too soon. So let's do that 510. And let's fix the alien. Oh, and Bone Crusher. Oh, well, I'll go in order in the chat so I don't get confused here. So Noob did mention he's wondering why I use drag and drop instead of script. It's a valid question for most people. Yeah, it definitely is a question. And over time, you just kind of have to find the thing that works for you. Noob's general rule is to use scripts for complex code, but if drag and drop works well enough, use it. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at now too. As long as I don't have to go too far into like this if else tree. And in some cases, like with switch statements, it's just cleaner to use it in code. So kind of a balance. And Bone Crusher said, thanks, and by the way, the game looks nice so far. Thank you. And thank you for jumping into the chat, by the way. I appreciate it. Sorry I didn't understand your question right off the bat, but I hope you got it answered. And just you personally, when you're using GameMaker, do you prefer just going all script, or do you use some of the visual stuff? And if you do use all script, why do you tend to prefer that way? Be kind of curious, because it's nice to hear other people's perspectives. Kind of think outside of the usual box. And Noob gave me a compliment. Wow, thanks. Yeah, he definitely has an eye for game design. Thank you. Appreciate that. I hope that eye for game design does hold up through the rest of this project. Let's see. Oh, get back into it. So, if the enemy isn't frozen, I just need to copy that over to the alien. That's the one I forgot to do. Wow, today's a good day. Thank you guys for dropping by and jumping into the chat. Love it. And then if any of you guys who haven't jumped into the chat so far have questions, feel free to ask. I'm not the type that's gonna jump down anyone's throat. I'm the last person that should be doing that because there's lots of ums and ahs and awkward debugging moments that pop up during the show, and you get to see all of them. So I'm in no position of power whatsoever. You can see all of my ugly warts and all. Okay, everyone's kind of showing up. Alien gets there too fast. Ghost gets there a little too slow. So the alien's way too fast. So I should start with the Scorpion and the Snowman out earlier. Sorry about these fine-tuning adjustments. This is all just timing stuff. Let's start the Ghost out really early. Like 220 early. And start the Scorpion out much earlier too. Like 245 early. And delay the bad cowboy even more. Wow. Okay. 40. And after this, I actually do want to pause the timeline because eventually I'll be wanting to throw like, congratulations and different things over this. So let's pause that timeline so that it doesn't end on me. All right, let's see what happens. Probably made things worse. Trying to remember all the things I want to change when I should just be changing one thing at a time. Getting greedy. And Bone Crusher got back to me. Use mostly script because I can have it all labeled and neatly organized. Okay, yeah. Yeah, especially if you do come from a programmer background. You're used to having all your text there where you need it and easily searchable. So I can definitely understand that. Because at first when I was using this GUI thing, I had trouble getting around it a little bit, especially trying to find stuff. The alien's way too early. Scorpion's still way too late. Ghost is fine. Scorpion. Okay, let's get him over there sooner. Let's start him out at 2. Don't want to start him out before the ghost. Battery Cowboy's fine. Alien's way too fast. So let's bump him back to 510. And let's try that. Whoops. I accidentally started it up in debug mode, so this will take a little bit longer to start. So Bone Crusher, just out of curiosity, I'm assuming you are using GameMaker because you're mentioning, like, you know, why use drag and drop versus script. But before you used GameMaker, were you using anything else? Like, were you making games in C++ or C# or Unity, for example, with C#? Be kind of curious about that too, because you know, where you're coming at GameMaker, for example, might also determine the kind of style you like as well. I guess I'm kind of used to the visual style now. I need to shift the last 2 guys off to the right. Timing's still a little off, but I think it's good enough to go for now. It's not super critical to get everyone lined up and spend like an hour after hour doing that. So let's get these guys a little more to the right. 280. 280, 300. And this guy needs to be 315, right at the edge of the screen. And I'll just run it one more time. But what I should do is add that in as a task. Shouldn't take too long, but game over, fix the enemy appearance timing. If I can spell appearance timing. And I can leave that as a task. Whoops. Later. Since it has been a while since I mentioned it, I have my task list over at Trello. So if you look up Trello and Project Spaghetti, you can always see it anytime you want to. And enemies line outside the outhouse. That is done. But let's just play through it one more time to see how it is. The perfectionist in me does kind of want to fix those timings, but it's not that important as long as it's working. There's more important things. Higher risk tasks, I should say. Like if you're using Agile, you want to take on the tasks that are either worth a lot, or add a lot of value to your product, or are riskier early. Because the less risky stuff, it's easier to estimate. Not too bad. Okay, so it's just the snowman that's taking forever to get out there. And he moves way too far off to the right. And I think snowman's 6, so let's just not do that. And I'll just fix the timing on that snowman, and then I'll move on. Ding. So 6. So snowman needs to come out a lot faster. 235. Okay, we'll run with that for now. And jump over to the task list. Guess I don't need that. Jump over to the task list. Okay, so probably will wrap up episode 35 and then move on to episode 36, like I said at the start of the show, since I am at GDC next week. I won't be able to do next Saturday's episode, so in place of that, I'll be just kind of rolling right into episode 36 after this. Obviously, if you guys have things to do, it isn't the normal scheduled time, so I definitely don't mind if you guys have to jump out or anything like that. Obviously, I never mind if you have to jump out. Just glad you show up. So let's move these out of there. And what we got done. But before I do that, Noob mentions if you made the comment be spawn enemy number name, it might make looking for the specific enemy easier. Yes, that's actually a good idea. Because I've kind of got it in my head which one's which, but especially for you guys, it's just seeing enemy like 3, 4, what does that mean? So, let's do that real quick, since that's good advice. So I've been just playing this so long that I kind of remember the order enemies show up in. But I can still make mistakes. And it's just better to make things clear because, 3 months from now I might not remember all that stuff. Boom. Spawn enemy 6, spawn enemy 2, batter cowboy. That's the green cowboy that shoots a little faster. 5 is the alien who wants to use the bathroom but not as bad as the bad cowboys. And the boss cowboy who should theoretically have first use of the bathroom because he's the boss. So that'll make it a little clearer. You can see at a glance right off the bat which enemy's which. So thank you for that hint. And Bone Crusher said, I tried Unity but failed, but I've also used JavaScript. But all in all, I prefer GameMaker Studio. Also before GameMaker Studio, used GameMaker 8.1. Awesome, so you've been at GameMaker for a while then. Yeah, I never... No, I did get a chance to use GameMaker 8.1 back in the day, before they went to Studio. At that time, I don't think I played too much with it, but I do remember some of the things I liked better about GameMaker 8. Like one, for example, is just the ability to wait whenever you wanted to. Kind of missed that, having to set up either alarms or timelines to do all this stuff. Yeah, probably makes things cleaner and safer, but just kind of miss having a wait function. But tried Unity. Yeah, I've done stuff in Unity too. Like for example with Project Spaghetti, the reason I decided to do this in GameMaker, obviously GameMaker is well suited for 2D projects, which is what this is, so that's one of the reasons I did that. But the other thing is, like with Unity, yeah, you can do 2D games in it, but it's designed, it's more powerful than that. So, like with any software program, if you have something more powerful than what you need, you tend to have a lot of extra features that you have to kind of dig through or dig around to do what you want to do. There's definitely advantages to Unity. Obviously, it's super popular, so you've got tutorials on everything under the sun. So that's one good thing. Also, it is very powerful, so if you wanted to suddenly decide, I want it to look 2D, but I want to have like shaders and cool, rendering effects and all that stuff, you could easily jump to doing all that in Unity. It's very powerful. Allows you to use, like you said, if you were using JavaScript, you could use JavaScript with Unity. It also lets you use C#. Because I end up using both, I kind of waffle back and forth between them and it gets me confused, but you can use both. But it is a very powerful engine, but that also makes it harder to use, especially like for me, since I'm kind of doing this project here every week just for a few hours. Unity's probably going to be overkill for what I needed to use, so didn't really jump into that one. The other thing I've used is Unreal, and that's definitely more powerful than what I need to use, even though they do with Unreal 4. They have, shoot, what is it called? Is it Paper Sprite? Paper 2D. Or Paper 2D, okay. They do have something called Paper 2D, which allows you to make 2D games inside of Unreal Engine, and they look really nice. So Unreal, Unity, they're both options. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. I just like GameMaker because it does exactly what I needed to do. No more, no less. But jumping over to that task list. So this episode, we got the outhouse drawn, thrown in the middle of the map. Had that game over room set up. The player walks out to the bathroom, heads into it, and the enemies line up outside after a little bit of debugging. So that's good. And there we go, that's episode 35, and I'm going to jump right into episode 36. But let's see, how should I do this so I can cut this up for YouTube? How about, just so I know where I'm at, I'm going to just run the closing thing, stop my recording, and then jump back into this, because I think that'll make it the easiest. Yeah, just worrying about like editing these videos later. So for you guys in the live, I don't want to cause too much hassle for you, but please forgive the weirdness that's about to happen. I'm not actually stopping the episode. I'm going to keep going. So I guess for now I should sign off for you guys on YouTube. So let me jump off the desktop, and it's probably worth at least signing off for now. So for those of you guys on YouTube, thank you for watching our game development show. You can catch past episodes in this one over at youtube.com/Tengu Studio, where you're probably watching this. And if you are watching this later on YouTube, please come drop by the live show we do on Twitch TV Blue Tengu. Like I said, I won't be here next week, but after that I'll be here every week, as I always am. I do this Saturday from 8 to 10 a.m. in Japan, which translates into 3 to 5 Pacific, 4 to 6 Mountain, 5 to 7 Central, 6 to 8 Eastern on Fridays. If you're in the UK, that means Friday night from 11 p.m. to Saturday 1 a.m. If you're in Japan here with me, obviously it's 8 to 10 Saturday morning. And if you live in Australia, it starts anywhere from 8 to 10 depending on where you live. Australia is a big place. And New Zealand, it starts at 11 a.m. Saturday. But we do always announce what we're doing through Twitter. So following Tengu is probably the easiest way to keep track of when the live show starts. And as Noob mentioned, Twitch is not so good at sending announcements out when people are streaming. So maybe Twitter's the easy way to follow. But of course, you can see what we're doing anytime over at www.bluetengu.com. And I am here every week, so as long as you kind of remember the time, it shouldn't be too bad. And as I announced at the top of the show, we won't be around next week because I'll be attending Game Developers Conference in lovely San Francisco. So I am doing an extra long live show, and I'll break that into 2 parts for you guys on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and if you're watching the live show, I'll be right back. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.